Hello class. Today I'll be discussing my learning analysis paper, which I've titled Intersectionality of My Individual Identities. I got that idea from a TED Talk that really means a lot to me, because in this paper we discussed how our stories affect other people, and one of the TED Talks was the danger of a single story. So I thought that really played into intersectionality and just how each of our different identities coexist together. So the readings that I used to kind of discuss ideas of the class and within my paper were the one from Andre Lorde, and which was titled "There's No Hierarchy of Oppressions." I also used pieces from Leanne Bell's The Theoretical Foundations for Social Justice Education, Peggy McIntosh, White Privilege and Male Privilege, and then I've used One Is Not Born a Woman by Monique Whitting. And also, lastly, I used a powerful speech given by Sojourner Truth, Ain't I a Woman? So, basically, my paper that I wrote about was just kind of how society has defined what it necessarily means to be a woman. To me, to be a woman, I don't think there's a definite, like, guideline or structure. I just think there's certain components of my existence and what society tells me to be. So basically my paper, obviously I focused on how race affects my ideology of what being a woman is, because to me, although I am a woman, I'm also a Black woman, and that creates a unique experience that, say, an Asian or Latinx or white woman will never have the same thing. There are predisposed assumptions or stereotypes about Black women that do exist in this country and have transpired around the world that aren't always true about every single Black woman, including myself. I base off who I am off of more than just being Black and also a woman, but also I'm a person that's educated. Obviously, I'm in a college class. I come from a wealthy family, and which means I'm upper middle class. I wouldn't say high class, no, not that. And that creates a unique experience in itself, because when people first see me, they may assume else about myself before I'm able to even speak, which is something that a white woman will never have that experience. So when I walk down the street, it's not like have a big thing on my head that says I am educated, I have money. It's just I'm another Black woman walking down the street. Whatever that may mean to the person that crosses me, it can mean whatever. But we all know in America what that tends to mean to people. So in my paper, by using those different literature from each of these authors, Lorde, Bell, McIntosh, Truth, and Whitting, I interconnectively picked out pieces of their writing that I felt spoke to me. So Andre Lorde is a Black lesbian activist, poet, speech writer. She talks about how there's not an oppression that she can necessarily pick and like put it pilot on each other. Her ideal is that oppression shouldn't be, oh, how oppressed am I compared to how oppressed are you. It's just that I am oppressed, we are both oppressed. It may not be in the same way of oppressed, but we both acknowledge where our oppression comes from. And basically from that, I got that she was trying to look at it as, if each group that is oppressed just acknowledge simply we are oppressed, it doesn't matter how you are oppressed, it's just we are oppressed. That helps those oppressed groups identify the dominant group in ways that we can reach to just make a coexisting mesh. So just because she's Black doesn't mean that she's not a lesbian. She's Black and she's a lesbian. So she's oppressed from both sides of being Black and also being non-heterosexual. And that's where I kind of related to her with just being Black within a different community, still you're Black. And Lee and Bell gave us a multitude of great just quotes and insight. It really broke it down on an educational basis of just where oppression, racism, and those notions of the dominant group and agents of the dominant group come from. So what I got from her was that the attitudes that we put towards ourselves necessarily come from societal expectations. So the attitudes that I have as being in the subordinate group comes from the dominant group. That may sound a little confusing, but basically what she's saying is that based on the dominant white cultural norms, I base my subordinate cultural norms off of that. So it's not like I'm aspiring to be in the white cultural norm. It's just that the white cultural norm is the normative approach in our society. So it's like, oh, you should aspire to be this, but underlying, we're really saying like, oh, you should aspire to be white. So what she's trying to break down is that without a dominant group, there is not a subordinate group. So there always has to be someone under for there to be a hierarchy. And that kind of goes in to like back to what Andre Lorde was saying, that there isn't a hierarchy of oppression. People are oppressed, period. That's it. Like, that's how it is, whether or not, oh, I'm this type of oppressed, I'm this type of oppressed. Like, we're all oppressed, dominant, subordinate. And Peggy McIntosh is a white woman, and I was having trouble relating to some of the other authors, but I thought that she was trying to get at something really positive. She was saying that white men obviously have trouble with acknowledging their privilege, but she's saying, first of all, by naming it a privilege is a problem in itself, because privilege is seen as something positive. But in our society, white privilege is something that is clear cut, and it's not necessarily positive. It's a power dynamic that white men and white people have used that is unearned, and it's just something that through the history of America they have gained. But it's not, they just use that power to dominate and continue to dominate. And her being a white woman, acknowledging that she has white privilege, is the first step, because white men and this country has allowed them to ignore those things. Monique Whittage, what I pulled out from her was just basically how I see myself as a woman. Society, there's no like biological thing about myself that says this is what it means to be a woman, other than my sexual reproductive organs, and that's literally it. But that has nothing to do with telling me how to wear my hair, how to dress, how to act, how to speak, how to take up space, how to walk down the street, etc. Like, society and civilization has literally made those things for us. And that's kind of what I pulled out from her. And then Sojourner Truth, even though her speech was very short, I just related to everything she said, even though that was written 2 centuries ago, basically. Like, what she was saying was basically just a cry out, and something that I think Black women hear and repeatedly now. Like, I am a part of the movement. I am the movement. I'm still a woman. Yes, I'm Black, but I am a Black woman. I stand for women's right to vote. I stand for women's sexual liberation. I stand for myself to have kids or choose not to have kids. I stand for myself to choose whether or not I want to be heterosexual or homosexual or a trans woman. Like, I am still a woman. Hear my voice. Why am I being ignored? So all of those writings together kind of just placed me in an area of where I am accepting who I am, where I belong in society, where I can and cannot belong in society, and just transcribing my personal experience as a person through the exploration of these many literatures and writings, and just basically exploring what it means to be Black, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be heterosexual, what it means to be wealthy, what it means to be educated. I'm Kenya, and that's who I am. Thank you.